Hey, it's Dr. Scott Langford from the Stanford Gen Global Educators YouTube channel, and I'm joined today by Nick Shafer, who is the co-founder and current interim director of an amazing nationwide, even international organization for community college students called Global Community College Transfers Network. Nick is also, full disclosure, one of my own former students, I'm very proud to say, transferred to UC Berkeley and currently coming to us live from Washington, D.C., where he's working for USAID. So hi, Nick. Welcome to the Gen Channel.
Hi, Scott. It's always a pleasure. Just like honestly, go Bears, go Owls.
Yeah, all of the above. Let's give people an overview of what you've accomplished. I remain completely amazed and proud of you, especially given that you did this, much of this, right in the middle of the COVID quarantine. We're about 6 months in right now. Or more. So what's Global Community College Transfers Network all about?
Yeah, so we're a soon-to-be 501c3 and collective of community college products, transfers across the U.S. That are aiming to leverage our networks and get more community college students into careers in foreign affairs and to get competitive scholarship opportunities, do things like study abroad, language study, etc. Basically, long story short, bring international curriculum into community colleges and help internationalize the community college experience.
Right. And let me ask you, just using your own example, because we both lived through this, how did you internationalize your own experience as a community college student at Foothill College? Because in my mind, a lot of what you and your many colleagues across the country are trying to accomplish is to do for other students what happened to you, and make it a more universal and common experience, especially for first gen students, students of color, non-traditional students, students who, unlike me, for example, didn't come up in an elite college environment, didn't have parents who went to college, and never, like never knew what a fellowship was. Like, fellowship, is that fellowship of the rings? Can you get a fellowship if you're female? Like, I know that that word is awkward, and I've learned partly from you that I have to be more careful in introducing students to these kinds of opportunities, because it's almost like a special world in a special language.
Yeah, well, it absolutely is. And I think one of the things, like in my own case with the Ibrahim program, which I went on in 2017, was for me a gateway. And many for these scholarships, they're gateways into communities, especially in the foreign affairs industry, in language studies, scholarships, et cetera. They're communities, right? And they lead kind of like a pyramid. You get one of these, which leads to this, which leads to this, which leads to this. And so if you want to do something like a Fulbright, right, or one of the flagship cultural exchange programs that is free money, right, that anybody is eligible for, if you want to be competent for those kinds of things, you have to think early, right? And so first off, what is a Fulbright? Most people don't even know what that is at the community college level. I certainly didn't. And it wasn't until I received one of these kind of smaller scholarships that led me on a fully funded trip across the Middle East for 6 weeks. I went to 5 countries while in community college, 5 countries in 6 weeks in the Middle East. And then that pivoted from that to go study Hebrew and Arabic, and kept on going back to the region, to the point where I actually double majored in Arabic and anthropology at Berkeley. So it was intensely formative for me. And I think that that's what we're about. There's many US government scholarships and many opportunities that are out there that community college students are eligible for. The Critical Language Scholarship, the Gilman Scholarship, which targets Pell Grant recipients, the Boren Scholarship, so many different opportunities that I've done, others of us that have done, that have studied critical languages, have gone on to do study abroad, that are out there, and people just don't know that they're eligible. And so one of the key demographics and why community colleges are so important is they're home to those people who have those weird educational experiences, the children of immigrants, people who are heritage speakers, right? If you're a heritage speaker of Vietnamese, right? If you live in East San Jose and you are a heritage speaker of Mandarin, right? Like, you can be funded to go and live overseas. You can get a job for that kind of skill set. And there's a perpetual bias within the foreign affairs community to have very, very high barriers to entry that mean that people that come from low income backgrounds, first gen backgrounds, community colleges more generally, right, as temples of non-traditional education, they never are able to enter into those spaces because they're always behind. They're always learning too late about the feeder opportunities. So, and that's where we really are coming in, is like, we want to be those mentors. We were able, by luck, by a good professor, right? People like yourself, right, who really help us learn about these kinds of opportunities, write us letters of recommendation to be able to access these scholarships and these things, we want to give that back. And so at this point, we've developed a 35 plus network. I can actually show you our website if you want. I can.
Yeah, and then I do want you to tell people about your network of your sort of directors network, your team,
Mhm.
because again, I was completely flabbergasted and amazed that you could put together a team like this so quickly and so effectively with such extraordinary credentials. And speaking on behalf of other community college instructors, since I'm one myself, I think it also shows that this is not just a pipe dream that Nick has. I mean, he's got a team of over 30 people, all of whom come directly from community college, are eager, as so many community college students are, to give back to the community college system. It's a beautiful thing about our system, but who have also accessed these kinds of opportunities that unfortunately to date are still rather rare, but not non-existent. So what Nick has been able to do is to network with other students who are directly coming out of community colleges, who have done extraordinary international fellowships, foreign study abroad opportunities, international diplomacy opportunities, both to show that it can be done, but also to mentor our students who have no idea that these kinds of doors could be open for them.
Well, and this is one of the things that we've really found is that all of us have had the experience of reinventing the wheel, where we have found people who are 10 years older than us, right, who did these things, who went to this kind of graduate school, are working in diplomacy, are working in this kind of career track, but they had to learn that wheel themselves. We had to learn that wheel ourselves, and there was no transmission of that generational knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's very telling when places like, I don't know, Yale Law School, right, has a very tight alumni network that helps bring people into law careers, right? But community colleges, the nature of community colleges, how decentralized they are, there is no alumni network, especially for careers that require a BA or master's degree, like international affairs. And so we're really hoping to fill in some of that stopgap. And so in that spirit, we designed this website over the last couple of months. Here's some of our partners. We've formally partnered with Department of State, First Trip, USAID, the Boren Forum, Community Colleges for International Development, a whole bunch of different actors in the space that are opportunity providers. You can kind of go, I welcome anyone to go look at our website. It's www.globalcctransfers.com. You can see it up here in the right, and I'm sure it'll be in the YouTube description. We have a link, the description of our bios, our core team. And I do want to reiterate, this is a collective effort, right? I'm one of the co-executive directors alongside Diana Chavez-Varela, but we also have all of us, right? Jasmine is currently a UK Fulbrighter who started at Shasta College, from a rural part of California. Marcus is an East Coast transplant from Queens, from Jamaica, Queens, and came to UC Santa Barbara City College, went to Berkeley, and is now in Belgium on a full ride master's program in University of Ghent. Camille transferred to Georgetown, right? Leah Yen is a Marshall Scholar, the first Marshall Scholar ever in the history of UCLA, who was a transfer student and is currently at University College London, right? We have 3 awesome interns who are currently seniors, juniors and seniors, who are learning from us and we're working with to help them reach their full potential and their goals. So we have a whole wide team of people who have really showing up for this project, and it's been really inspirational to just pull them all together. And so we're developing a scholarship and fellowship database where people can search for different opportunities. We have different resources. We have a LinkedIn, we have a blog that we're already starting to populate with different interviews and kind of stories just about the transfer experience. And it's been really a journey, a really fast journey. And this all really culminated as well. Let me quickly share. We actually had the big keynote that we had was a crash course event that we ran. That was a 2-day leadership institute that we ran with about 400 plus registrants across more than 36 community colleges over 2 days. And so on September 25th and 26th, we had 400 plus registrants, about 100, average of about 100 to 150 attendees per day, per session, where we hosted formal representatives. You can see our core team, all of our faces here. But then we had formal representatives from the State Department, from American councils talking about critical language scholarships, how to fund study abroad. Peace Corps came. Alicia Hayes from UC Berkeley talked about scholarships on the under BA level to talk to community college students about, hey, how do you talk about community colleges experiences in applications and essays? Second day, we had people from the Department of Defense, 3 brilliant students who all have different experiences there. Talking about graduate scholarships for overseas study, exposing the concept of international scholarships and graduate study overseas to the community college population, USAID, and then we actually ended with a fantastic keynote with Ambassador Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley, who is the former U.S. ambassador to Malta and the first African-American woman to serve in that position, who herself, actually her niece, would go into Santa Barbara City College, and so she herself is a passionate CC advocate. And so it's been really, really fantastic to work with this team together to pull this together and to build this national mentoring network where we can actually make a dent in expanding access to these opportunities and just kind of improve community college representation. I mean, community college students are 46% of all undergraduates in the United States, and on average, 35% of like UC Berkeley, UT Austin, UNC, big public schools, 35% are transfers. And so it's an undertapped population, and we're really, really enjoying being able to bring that together and bring these opportunities to CC students across the country.
Yeah, and that's my first trip through your crash course packet since that just launched. And again, I can't believe that you got this whole thing up and running in less than a year, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of quarantine, a crash course involving hundreds of community college students, including some of my own, students from De Anza, our sister college at Foothill, from all across California, all across the United States. Such an accomplishment. And then, you know, everybody from ambassadors to current students facilitating. It exemplifies what you're trying to accomplish. And it shows, I think it really shows both the power and the need that so many students signed up on short notice in the middle of COVID quarantine, in the middle of trying to cope with all the chaos. And yet, even in these times of crisis, you were able to put together a super successful event, multi-hour, multi-day even? Was it multi-day now? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, we had 10 sessions over 2 days with
That's right.
more than a dozen speakers that we were able to pull together with an average of 100 plus attendees per session.
Right. And this is just the beginning too. Like, it shows really the power and the beauty of what you're able to do. And especially how many students you were able to introduce to this world that was new to you too. Like, that's what I'm saying. And I want to say again, on behalf of community college instructors, I mean, I knew what a Fulbright was and a Marshall and a Rhodes, but I'd never heard of the Ibrahim's Fellowship. And you know, since you started out and then literally became one of the on-site in the Middle East program leaders there, I've had 2 other journalism students from Foothill who went on an Ibrahim opportunity as well. And again, I mean, hooray that I have amazing students and that Foothill produces these fantastic journalists. No, I don't want to sound humble, but like, I would never have known to say to them, hey, there's this amazing fellowship that's open to community college students. I guess traditionally it's frequently gone to students from elite universities, although, you know, they've done their part with outreach too. But just speaking for myself as a community college instructor who is pretty sophisticated in terms of international opportunities, you've introduced me to all kinds of programs that I didn't know about either. So I think that there's a real power here for community college instructors as well. And since you mentioned that you had speakers from the Defense Department as well as the State Department, I want to put a shout out, like, so students who are veterans. So our students, so many of our students are veterans in community college, and they really have extraordinary opportunities to leverage their experience in ways that they may not be aware of, and that I wasn't aware of either until you started shouting out to me about these things, the same way that heritage speakers can use their language skills. And of course, you know, you've mastered Arabic without being an Arabic speaker, so it doesn't mean you have to have the heritage language skills. But heck, so many of our students come with these amazing skill sets that frequently aren't on the radar, even on their own radar. Like, I could use my language, my multi-language abilities. I could use my multicultural background. I could use my experience as a veteran to make these doors open even faster for me. It's a beautiful thing that you're trying to do this way, because I think it also empowers students to use who they are, not to hide it, but to say, hey, I have skill sets that are powerful that you could use.
Mhm. And that's exactly how we want to approach this. There's a huge psychological break where many people look at something like study abroad and see it as something that, oh, you can only do that if you're rich. You can only do that if you're wealthy. You can only, and then people question, like when I was studying Arabic, right? People ask me all the time, like, why is it an economically viable choice? Why spend 6 years of your life poring over the Quran and pouring and spending money and time learning a language that you're not a native speaker in? And the reason why is because it is an economic decision at the end of the day. It's also personal, but it is, as with all, and especially community college students that are worried about, how am I going to pay off my debt, right? How am I going to like get a job with the degree I get? The two primary pathways that you can get a federal job in the US government is either by being a STEM major and studying a technical discipline, or through critical language track. And so there's many people that, you're right, I started learning Arabic from scratch, to the point now where I got hired at USAID in part through a fellowship pathway, but also because I spoke Arabic and had spent a ton of time on government scholarships in the Middle East, in Jordan, Morocco, Algeria, studying Arabic. But there's also many people who are heritage speakers who already have a leg up that you could go and test out of like introductory Mandarin and like start taking. Yeah, and you can, and at the end of the day, that's also more powerful when about diplomacy, about foreign affairs. Ultimately, what we want to go through this project is show it doesn't matter where you come from or what you look like or what your country is. We live in a country where people oftentimes feel like they have to hide those parts of their identity. Where the reality is opportunity providers more and more and increasingly want to celebrate that diversity and want to encourage that diversity to consider careers in the foreign service, careers in foreign affairs, and to apply for these kinds of opportunities. And so there's active encouragement, as we've encountered, kind of as we've been bureaucratically expanding and talking partners and US government, scholarship providers, university sector, et cetera. We've met nothing but positive reinforcement. We've met nothing. Every single, this is very telling, right? Is that what's missing in this space is not will. It's just logistics of like, how do you actually, within a decentralized community college system, how do you get information out there in a structured way? How do you capitalize on the community college alumni that are out there, that come back as peer-to-peer mentors that get it? What does it mean to be a non-traditional student? What does it mean to be a working class student? What does it mean to navigate these structures you don't quite understand? And speaking community college language, that's really where we see ourselves in facilitating those kinds of connections and connecting the bigger organizations like State Department, American Councils, IIE, NSET, Foreign Forum, all of these orgs that provide scholarships and opportunities back to community college students, and serving as intermediaries that then community college students can understand, what would this look like for me? And how can I take my own unique experience, be it first generation American, children of immigrants, low income, or just a simple kid in the suburbs that wants to learn Russian, right? Like all of this stuff is, if you have the passion and the drive, then the opportunities are there. And what we want to do by building this network, promoting some webinars, seminars, crash courses, mentoring, et cetera, is to just get the word out there to encourage more interest in these opportunities.
Right, and a lot of what resonates for me, and again, what has amazed me, it accounts for the speed, partly that you set this up, is that you're doing outreach to, you're reaching back to students who are current community college students as transfers yourself, right? So you're reaching back to help other students who are coming up behind you. But as you said, there's this hunger for how do we reach students in community college system, from recruiters in the State Department, the Defense Department, from recruiters in fellowship programs, from recruiters in international career opportunities, and they actually don't know how to make those connections. So you're really, it is a network in both directions. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons you got set up so fast, as you've emphasized to me, and as all those logos on your website indicate, is that there's been this real hunger. Like people have been desperate, like how do we expand our outreach, and not knowing how to do it. So you have an expertise in both directions, and I think you're kind of translating in both directions. You're translating fellowship speak and State Department speak to community college students who are unfamiliar with that language. But you're also telling the people who are in the State Department and in these international organizations, how do you communicate effectively how do you outreach effectively to our community college students who bring these amazing experiences and skill sets and cultural knowledge with them automatically, and can be a huge asset to these large organizations.
Well, and this is one of, I remember we gave this fantastic talk to all the diplomats and residents about like 30 plus recruiters across the US about the value of community colleges recently, about a month ago now. And when you think about foreign affairs, what skills do you need? You need cultural resiliency.
Yes.
You need response to like amorphous kind of timelines where your timeline is 2 years, right? Where you're like 2 years in a country, 2, 3 years in a country, and then you have to go figure out what the next step is. You're always planning. And what is our community college students, right? It's like they're resilient. They think on their feet. They're balancing, whether it's like family obligations, caretaking obligations, work, full-time class, whatever. Like that is what marks community college and non-traditional pathways. It's the natural pool of talent from like, and this is like to the educators in your audience that aren't as familiar with like the kind of with the, I guess, State Department Foreign Affairs angle on this. That's really what they want to incentivize. Like, how do we find those people who are resilient? How do we find those people who are able to navigate adversity? And so community colleges and transfer students are a really welcome point for that, where a lot of people who go through a traditional BA, that's part of the reason why many people don't even go into the foreign service or careers in foreign affairs until they've already worked, right? Or until they've already gotten an MA, because they need that further life experience to be able to realize, like, how do I do this in a resilient way? How do I actually work as a diplomat? Whereas that's the non-traditional bread and butter, right? Is like, how do you navigate uncertainty? And so there's a lot of very interesting through lines between the community college population, the educator interest in wanting to get opportunities to their students, right? And then the opportunity providers that say, this is a fantastic pool of talent, millions, 8.8 million in the US around, that are just not represented. They're not at the table in kind of conversations about diversity, conversations about recruitment, conversations about equity. And so we are really, really excited to hopefully be on the forefront of that and being able to connect a lot of these dots and ultimately serve students. I think that for all of us, what also marks our organization is different than say like the College Excellence Program at Aspen or even Stanford, some of the work at Stanford, which is fantastic. We're students. We've all graduated from community colleges. I was at Foothill 3 years ago, right? It wasn't that long ago that I was on a community college campus.
That's kind of amazing.
It wasn't that long ago that I was at a community college. And since being on community college, I've gone to Berkeley, worked at the State Department in Algeria, full year funded in Jordan, here at USAID, going to go be doing a Fulbright in Morocco. Like, the trajectories past CC are fantastic. There's lots of students that have these kinds of stories. And so we're, at the end of the day, hopefully relatable, and that we remember what it's like to be in a community college campus where you feel starved for resources. You can't find mentors. You feel like you're the only one that's interested in study abroad. At Foothill, there was no Arabic program. So I had to go to I went to the Muslim Community Association and I took a class for converts.
Right.
Yeah, that was how I self-taught through the first year of Arabic, because there was no Arabic class at Foothill. So I felt very isolating. And if I'd had some network like this to help support that, and support that Arabic study, that interest in the Middle East, it would have been less lonely in that year, and I could have had some more guidance of how to handle that. And so that's really what we're hoping to provide. And through our diverse skill sets, about almost all of us in the 35 plus have either US government scholarships to do study abroad, et cetera, or currently work in foreign affairs. So pretty much what we're hoping is, if you're interested in maritime security, if you're interested in like Indonesia, Southeast Asia, we have someone we can send you to. If you're interested in development in Africa, HIV/AIDS, boom, there you go. We have someone that we can kind of send you to. If you're interested in international education, if you're interested in refugee rights, right, that we can kind of build this informal alumni network that can help bring targeted advice to students that need it most in the community college level to help them reach their full potential.
Yeah, in fact, let's run down the list of all the different educational organizations you're working with, because we ran through some of the government and fellowship organizations, but from a huge network of community colleges up to the sort of elite or so-called elite universities, which are frequently populated by large numbers of transfer students, we might add. You've got an amazing network at the higher education level as well. So run me through some of the different networks and organizations you're working with in higher ed.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, I would be remiss to say that our core partner that has really made this possible has been Community Colleges for International Development. CCID and their executive director, Stephanie Kelly, absolutely fantastic. For any educators that are watching this, I encourage you to go check out their website. It's ccidinc.org, I believe. They have tons of experience with international in the curriculum for more than 30 years, but they've worked primarily on the pedagogical side. Like, how do you encourage pedagogy? Not so much on the opportunity provision side, like we are. But so Stephanie Kelly has been fantastic, and they're part of a consortium. They create this consortium of international education minded, global education minded, community college professors, faculty, administrators, et cetera. I believe they have more than 600 plus campuses across the country that they're engaged with and that they have presence with. They've been absolutely, we couldn't be doing this without Stephanie Kelly and CCID. So they're fantastic and have really keyed us into a lot of the corners of, say, the Council of American Community Colleges, other administrators, Lone Star College in Texas, for example, that are very interested in this. So they've been really incredible. Heather Adams and the College Excellence Program at Aspen Institute, we have like kind of a budding kind of partnership there. And then it's also at Stanford. And actually someone I went to high school with, Emma Kerr, who's currently a PhD student, from high school at Everest in Redwood City all the way to a Stanford PhD, studying the sociology of education. And we're currently developing a research plan with her and a team of graduate student researchers at Stanford to develop an actionable report, an actionable research product that will be coordinated with State Department and other foreign affairs opportunity providers to create an actionable survey about what are the specific challenges that community college students and transfer students face in accessing these opportunities. Is it economic? Is it knowledge barrier? And then how can State Department / other opportunity providers respond to those needs in a more effective way? So we're really excited to be really drawing, I forgot to mention, CCID is based in Texas. And so we're really be loving kind of drawing this national network between everywhere from Stanford and the West Coast and our kind of PhD researchers that are there, with CCID, which has this national network of community colleges based in Texas and in the South, and then with Aspen, which hopefully will be emerging soon out here on the East Coast. And
I'm going to put a shout out for Cal, since you're a Cal alum now, because I have to say, both with Global Community College Transfer Network and with College Leap, which is another organization that we've been interviewing on the Gen channel with Jay Zhao, I have been so gratified and amazed as someone who spent a year postdoc at Cal to see the incredible leadership that the UC system has shown in this area. So I'm happy that you're putting a shout out for those of us at Stanford who are trying to help out. But I got to say that a lot of the horsepower is coming out of the UC system as usual. And that's a beautiful thing too. And then you've got partnerships at Harvard and Georgetown and so on and so forth on the East Coast as well. So it's genuinely an amazingly nationwide network at every with sort of nodes in all sorts of directions. And I can't believe you did this in such a short amount of time.
Well, and I would also, again, be doubly remiss to mention that we've also been able to make contact with the Chancellor's Office, Chancellor Oakley, and the community college system, and the California Community College system. And at the end of the day, that's really the bread and butter of this. We're also really hoping that California can really serve as a model of kind of how can a highly structured, community college system, where it's right, like 1/3 or more of all of the students in the UC and CSU system start at community college. So it's not, I was in Berkeley, all of my best friends, everyone for the most part, were community college students and non-traditional students. And it's a tribe. It's a group of people that watch each other's backs and have each other's backs. And tapping into that consciously and empowering community college students to tell their story, claim their story, and then help tell that to help the next generation of transfers. So they're not feeling lost. They're not feeling like they have to reinvent the wheel at every stage of their educational journey. That's really what we want to do. And I've been lucky enough to be quite supported by Berkeley, and I have tons of graduate Go Bears, and as I said, Go Bears and Go Owls. And I'm just so excited to continue to see how we develop this. And the last thing I wanted to say, it's also administrators, it's also educators, it's also a champion on a specific campus, right? It's someone saying, yeah, I'm interested and I would love to spread the word about this. I would love to kind of talk about this opportunity. And so with this community college, the crash course that we did, this 2-day event, a lot of that was just, there was a professor that had a class at Fresno, right? Another one that had in Moraine College in Chicago or in Illinois, right? That just blasted their campus. And so it was one person, one single administrator or one single advocate, right? Who was able to expand that opportunity to millions of people. And so what we really want to do is, how do we build that network? How do we leverage these larger convener institutions, right? Be it Stanford or Berkeley or State Department or any of these people, right? And how do we get that onto campuses? How do we deliver this information onto campuses and into students' inboxes? And so I think that's kind of where we're hoping to be on the forefront of. And it's just, thank you, I guess, so much to you for your also consistent support. You've really been so helpful as we've been developing this idea over the last 5 months. And yeah, we wouldn't be here without your support, and also everyone else who's really been walking beside us.
Yeah, well, and I just want to, I've said it before too, but I really want to emphasize that you've been also helping me understand the range of opportunities. And it's been so empowering for me and other students. So I've been able to introduce and encourage a whole range of students to opportunities that they didn't know about, but thanks to you, I didn't know about until recently either. So it's been extremely gratifying and empowering for me as a community college instructor to make that happen. And I'm glad you mentioned Chancellor Oakley, who, for those of you who are not in the California community college system, we have an overall chancellor of our 115 community colleges. And Nick recently had a conversation with Chancellor Oakley. So we're getting support not only from individual community colleges, but also from the entire community college system in California, which is beautiful to see, because we do have the largest and most diverse community college system in the United States. And it's great that you're feeling that support at the institutional level as well.
Yeah, no, it's been refreshing. And I think this is one of the things that we, as a recent student that's navigated these pathways with little kind of guidance of, there weren't even really people in community college I knew who had gone on to do this stuff. I'm sure they existed. I'm sure you've known students that have done international stuff over your career, but as a student, my experience, I didn't encounter those people. They weren't part of my community college experience. And so the fact that for myself and many of my colleagues and all the rest of us that are making this happen, we talk about this all the time. So all of us, what unites us is feeling like we had to reinvent the wheel, that we had to discover these opportunities fresh. And it was always surprising to us. And to be fair, that's something many people across the country. And foreign affairs is not a career field that we have high literacy. It's not like what a diplomat does. I work in international development, and I'm still what is that? I still don't really know. And so this is also just about general societal literacy, about global ed, foreign affairs, study abroad, not just within community college students. But I think that's why the support is so incredible, right? Because as a recent student, it's realizing that it's not about lack of will. It's not about lack of resources. It's about lack of structure. It's about lack of the connective tissue, right? Between this Washington-based ecosystem of opportunity provision and even West Coast schools and other communities, rural colleges in the country, community colleges especially, that just aren't keyed in to these ecosystems. And so it's about, how do you draw these systems of connectivity that allow those opportunities to be known about, and to get community college students to envision themselves in pursuing and manifesting that for themselves.
Okay, well, and partly just as a way to wrap up what was an excellent and empowering conversation for me, catching up with all you've accomplished, even just in the last few weeks, because we talk quite frequently, but you've made so much progress, including the crash course. Congratulations. If you could screen share your website one more time, and let's just kind of run, I'm speaking again as a community college instructor, just kind of run people through the basic tabs, the kind of resources you have available. I do want to put a shout out from myself as a community college instructor to other instructors. If you read some of the bios in the board that Nick's put together, the network that he's put together, the leadership board, these are your students, but they also can and will be your students. And I think it's moving for me to read about the successes of students from all over the country, or transfer students, their willingness, their generosity with their time, and to put together something like this voluntarily with great heart and great effort to make it happen. So give us just a little tour of the website, and that'll be sort of a way for us to wrap up the conversation, Nick.
Yeah, of course. So again, this is the landing page right here, and so this is kind of a quick explanation for anybody who's interested of why global education. What is a global education? Like you made the comment earlier about fellowships. That's really, we're starting at ground zero. I was in a classroom at Skyline College recently pitching about this project to a room full of students, and someone said, "What's study abroad?" Right? So we're dealing with, especially for students at community colleges, the concept of study abroad, the concept of going overseas for a reason, that's mind blowing. It's like, what is that, right? Why would I, what? And so we really need to be careful with how we talk about these kind of opportunities, because how are you going to explain what a Fulbright is to someone who doesn't even realize what a summer study abroad trip is, or like how they could envision themselves there? Right. And so that's why we really think about this as building the social and cultural literacy to promote under awareness of what these opportunities are. And this is also because in many four-year schools, this advice is out there. You can go and find this from the moment you land on campus.
Mm-hmm.
It's
that was very much my experience, right? Like I was when you were talking about foreign service careers, I was literally flashing back to my Williams College experience, and that's where I start like, oh, you could do that. I'm like, yeah, a lot of our alums end up in diplomacy, like it was almost automatic. Mm-hmm. And it's not automatic in a community college system usually. So
not. And so yeah, so we have a quick kind of blurb here, just talking about why community college, targeting transfers and students who are currently at CCs. We have a list of our emerging partners, upcoming events is here. Then of course we have the About Us page, which is a brief bio. It's about us, like kind of who we are, what our mission is as an organization. Then here's just a couple of the brief bios within our core executive team. Me, Jasmine, Marcus, Leah, Diana, and Camille. Our interns, just short and sweet. I encourage anyone to go and read up on us and kind of see kind of what we've done and how we're organizing. Then, of course, we have the scholarships and fellowship section. This is currently under development, as with all major, like all big databases, a lot of data to parse through. But we have started to populate it with different opportunities like Gilman, Boren, CLS, and more. You can search here based on different variables, as well as organize based on variable. So you like what type, semester, summer study abroad, application year. When is the general due date? Because that's a big thing. A lot of these scholarships have an application date in October or November for a summer deadline. So you have to start thinking in much longer timelines than many community college students are kind of thinking about, especially in their first 2 years on campus. So this is currently just our database that we're developing. We're developing a resource tab where we have guides for different specific scholarships. So for example, we have several here already. Boren, CLS, Fulbright. This is just the first wave, but these you can see, let's say, look at here. So click on Fulbright, right? Goes open up to Google Drive. Can you still see the screen?
Yes, it's still here.
Perfect. So then we wrote up this like a one-page summary of what is the Fulbright program, kind of what makes you eligible, what is it, and then factors and selection, and then giving specific advice about community college students about what they should consider, kind of when thinking about this. How is your community college experience relevant to a Fulbright application? How do you talk about that? And so we're very excited to be rolling these out for some of the major programs like CLS, Boren, Fulbright, the US government kind of architecture of scholarships. And then of course, within the resources, we also have events and mentoring, which I believe we're currently under design. So we're rolling out a mentoring program with the participants that were in our crash course. So we have about 100 plus people that we're going to be doing one-on-one mentoring with over the course of the next couple of months. We're currently we've been on reboot mode after completing the crash course. So we're rolling that out now. But we have about 20-ish mentors that are going to each take on 3 to 4 to 5 mentees. And we'll mentor them, have one-on-one calls, talk with them about their career goals, opportunities, etc. So we're very excited to roll that out. We have an event sign up, so you can kind of stay in tune about as we're going to be doing webinars, seminars, that's listed under resources, and then of course blog. And so we have blog posts. We have 3 here. One on me from me about Boren, one on Camille about transferring and language scholarships, and then Jasmine on her experience with Fulbright UK.
Wow.
So we do have a pretty well-developed website. And so I would encourage anybody watching this to definitely go check us out. Again, it's globalcctransfers.com. And yeah, we would love to have you join us. And we also have a LinkedIn under Global Community College Transfer Network.
Not to mention, yes, your LinkedIn page is really useful because there's so many events coming up and popping up. So, and also inspirational articles that are very assignable to community college students. And just affirming for me as a community college instructor. Like, again, you've kind of educated me on the extraordinary, ongoing, always amazing success of our transfer students out in the university world and beyond.
Well, I mean, I can just quickly share my screen here. So our LinkedIn, we populated it with a wide variety of content. So I think you see it?
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, so this is one of our primary hubs that we're using to put out articles about community college transfers, people in our network, et cetera. So we are putting different content in here, just talking about promoting community college in the professional space, and then highlighting stories like Esteem Brumfield, for example, who was a Fulbright scholar, grew up illiterate, actually, and overcame illiteracy through community college and eventually made it to Berkeley and is now doing a master's in public health at Brown. Right. And so he has an incredible story to give. And we really want to elevate stories like his, Jasmine here, other folks, to just get word out there about the incredible people that have come through community colleges. Because you often hear like Tom Hanks and like Steve Jobs, kind of all these really big names. But it's also great to show someone closer to us, right? Who's like has achieved success by conventional social definition, but came from a similar background than us and is like in a similar life stage, only 5 years older than us, 6 years older than us, can be really inspirational. And we're highlighting those stories here on our LinkedIn page.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us this quick tour of the amazing and still emerging Global Community College Transfers Network. We will be tuning in again. As you know, Nick, I'm hoping to do some interviews with some of your other leadership teams soon. I think I may be able to repost some of those blog articles or repurpose them for our Stanford Global Educators Network publications as well. So looking forward to further collaborations and further conversations. Thanks for joining us on the Stanford Gen YouTube channel.
Thank you for the opportunity.